Is it all it's cracked up to be, this job?
There's not a lot of sleep involved. You do get buffeted about by events, and how you respond to those events really are the things that define and characterise your time in politics.
Prime Minister Chris Hipkins, holding his own in the polls, but his party is up against it leading into the election.
Jacinda Ardern stood for kindness. What would you say you stand for?
Opportunity. So I want to make sure that everybody in New Zealand has the opportunity to fulfil their full potential. So whether that's that they want to go into something that they're really passionate about and make an income out of it, if they want to found a business and make a success of that, if they want to become a tradesperson and they want to make a success of that, whatever it is that people want to do with their lives, I want them to have opportunities so that they can feel like they're getting ahead, they're working hard, they're getting ahead, they're achieving things for themselves and for their families.
Hey, it's been a bit of a humdinger of a month, hasn't it?
It certainly has been. It's been a bit of a humdinger of a year so far.
Napier MP and former Police Minister Stuart Nash has been sacked from Cabinet for misconduct.
Meanwhile, Michael Wood has finally sold the airport shares that saw him stood down as Transport Minister, but there's more turbulence ahead.
Hararu ana te papa huarewa atu matanui te haka I te kuhuna atu o te memo hou o te Pāti Māori.
Meka's departure was a shock to you, as to many, and she talked about being shackled and now free of the shackles. What do you make of that?
I was disappointed by that. I've had a good working relationship with Meka. She's a local MP alongside me, so her constituency, her electorate covers the Hutt Valley. I've delivered leaflets and knocked on doors to support her campaign, so I was a bit disappointed that she did that and didn't actually speak to me about it.
So, did you ever hear from her?
I never did hear from her, but look, she's made her decision and I respect that. I respect her as a person, and I wish her well for the future.
What took Michael Wood so long to sell those shares?
I don't think anyone can really explain that. I don't think Michael Wood can explain that, to be honest. And it's very frustrating because I think there was a quick fix that could have never been an issue had he sold them when he was first advised to sell them.
Do you think we're past the worst of the dramas around ministers and the errors and leaving and all that sort of stuff?
I think all politicians are human beings. Yes, it's frustrating when people make mistakes. It's how you respond, it's how you react to them that I think really matters. I think I've got the balance about right. When people make mistakes, people do make mistakes. It depends on the severity of their mistakes as to what then happens.
Missteps come at a huge cost in an election year, and Chris Hipkins' government has been hammered over it.
It just speaks to, again, as I've said, you can change the Labor leader, but it's the same old Labor. In fact, it's getting worse Labor. And what we're seeing is just an endless internal Labor personnel issue.
We hear a lot about, coalition of chaos. Do you think Labor's getting the cut through it needs to?
I think the National Party never get beyond bumper sticker slogans, and the bumper sticker slogans are easy. The substance is the hard part. And that is actually what we've been focused on as a government. And some of the issues that we've been dealing with are big intergenerational challenges that aren't going to be solved overnight, but I think we're making progress on them. So issues affecting Māori, for example, I'm really proud of the work we've been doing in education. That's an opportunity for us to change things intergenerationally. It's an opportunity for us to help our Māori whānau to realise their aspirations by providing a better education system for Māori young people, and actually for those Māori who are coming back into the education system as adults, looking for a second shot at learning. The work we've been doing around expanding kohanga reo, kura kaupapa, putting wānanga on a genuinely by Māori for Māori footing. We've got a lot of work there, and I'm really proud to have been working alongside Kelvin Davis to lead that work through. I think in the health system, a health system that is far more reflective of Māori and responsive to the needs of Māori is so important for us as a country. Is that job done? No, it's not, but we've made a good start.
The idea of co-governance is incompatible with democracy. Democracy means one person, one vote.
I think some of the debate here is really divisive and unnecessary. Co-governance is nothing to be scared of. There are co-governance arrangements in place all over the countryside. Many of them put in place by the last national government as part of the treaty settlements process, supported unanimously across the Parliament. I think that there is an unfortunate sort of baiting that's going on at the moment that isn't going to take us forward as a country. It is using Māori as a political punching bag. I hate that style of politics. I think that political leaders should focus on bringing people together. I understand the suspicion amongst some non-Māori New Zealanders.
What is it? What is the problem? Why are they fearful?
I think that fearfulness is, if Māori are getting something, does that mean that they are missing out? My answer to that is no, it doesn't. But I think that political leaders have a responsibility to make sure they understand that by lifting up our Māori communities, by making sure that they are more involved in decisions, by making sure that we are dealing with the past grievances and that we're actually levelling the playing field. And that includes, when we say levelling the playing field, we're not just talking about today, we're talking about all of the historical things that go with that. That's actually going to make New Zealand a stronger country for everybody. And so I don't think non-Māori New Zealanders have anything to fear from that.
So what can the government do more to reduce that fear?
I think we do, and you know, we've reflected critically on this, and I've certainly reflected critically on this in the few months that I've been in this job. I think we do need to take more time to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. So when we established the Māori Health Authority, for example, taking time to explain to non-Māori New Zealanders, this isn't separatism, this isn't something that they should be scared of. This is about saying that the health system has systemically under-delivered for Māori communities for a long, long time. And we're proactively doing something about that. That's going to be good for non-Māori New Zealanders. They shouldn't be scared of that.
After the break, what about Three Waters? Back with the Prime Minister.
Three Waters, of course, that was a huge, like, a lightning rod. You've, in the end, supported the 50-50 co-governance pushed by Māori MPs. Why was that?
Whatever language you use, whether you call it co-governance or something else, I mean, this is one of the frustrations about the phrase co-governance. Yeah. It means different things in a different context. So this co-governance arrangement is very different to co-governance arrangements for other you know, natural resources or whatever. So I think the phrase itself, in the context of water reform, hasn't actually been all of that useful.
Have you stopped using that phrase?
I've stopped using the terms co-governance and Three Waters because I actually think that they just became a kind of a lightning rod, and people who were most concerned about them in many cases didn't understand what we were actually talking about. The fact that our water infrastructure isn't fit for purpose. You know, we've got pipes that leak, we've got, in many places, you can't turn the tap on and drink the water that comes out of the tap without the risk of getting sick. We shouldn't have that in New Zealand. You know, we've got to do something about that. Our stormwater needs significant work, and I mean, poor Aucklanders. I think Aucklanders certainly understood that earlier in the year when all of that flooding happened. We've got to take this seriously, and it's going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars that it's going to cost us to do that. So we've got to look at how we can best do that, and we've got to bring communities with us. That means we need models for how we run our water infrastructure that actually involves communities in the decision that affects them, including Māori. And I don't think we should resile from that. I think we've got to make sure that everybody feels you know, a sense of involvement in decisions around water.
It was the Māori involvement, though, that some people had a meltdown over, wasn't it?
It was, and I think that was really unfortunate, and I think that, frankly, that was being used by a group of people who are more interested in creating a division to further their political agenda than they are and trying to seek solutions to the problems that we face. So
you've been accused of throwing out some of the policies, and so there was the media merger. He puapua. Is it this on principle, or is it pragmatic? Why is that happening?
The reprioritisation that I've been doing since I became Prime Minister is based on the fact that I recognise we can't do everything all at once. And if we try and do everything all at once, we're not going to be very successful in doing that. So we have had to say, OK, what are the most pressing priorities right now? And what are the things that we can really make a difference on right now? And let's focus our time and energy into those things so that Kiwis will see the difference that we're making. If we try doing everything all at once, we're not going to succeed.
The bonfire of the policies has grown into a towering inferno as Chris Hipkins refocuses his government on the cost of living.
And you talk about bread and butter issues. So would you do something like lift the GST on bread and butter and other essentials?
The number one thing that we've focused on as a government is bringing inflation back down, and that includes things like the cost of food, because we don't want to see the cost of food continuing to spiral. I wouldn't rule out making changes on GST or other forms of tax in the future. The challenge there would be to make sure that the benefits of that actually flowed through to the consumer, because if we reduced the GST on, say, fresh fruit and vegetables, we want to make sure that people actually benefited from that reduction.
So, dropping GST on healthy food? Well, till now the message has been don't expect any changes before the election. It's just too complicated, despite prices being up 12% on a year ago. But Chris Hipkins points to other cost-cutting gains.
So, for example, a practical example, the cost of prescriptions. Removing the $5 co-payment for prescriptions means that those people get access to that medication. It means they don't end up in hospital. So it's a cost of living measure, but it's got other benefits. It means that we're going to have a healthier community and less pressure on the health system. Those are the sorts of practical measures that I've been looking to. Halving public transport for younger New Zealanders who are doing their tertiary study or at secondary school, making it free for our children so that families in Whānau have got more choices around how they can get around, and making that more affordable for them. All of those things have a practical effect and they help to lower the cost of living.
National has signalled tax cuts if elected. The Greens want tax increases on the wealthy. Labor has still to announce its plans, but come under some high-profile pressure.
When is the time to actually have the wealthier people in our society pay more tax so that it's more fair and equitable?
Well, we have been focused on that as a government. We, after the last election, introduced a new top personal tax rate so that those who are earning the most money did pay more tax. In this last budget, we've changed the rules around trusts so that people can't hide their income in a trust in order to avoid paying their fair share of tax.
Renters, why would they have confidence in parliamentarians given the latest sort of research shows that everybody owns multiple houses?
Well, I think that there is a conflict there.
That's Mr Luxon and yourself, the whole bunch. There's only about 4 that don't.
Yeah, so I own multiple properties because of my complicated family arrangements, but I don't own any rental properties. But I do understand, the scepticism that New Zealanders will have here, and I think that those who have multiple rental properties, who are promoting, tax breaks for landlords, I think they should be upfront with New Zealanders about the fact that they're basically promoting a policy that they personally will benefit from.
What have you done that supports people who are renting?
We're focused on making sure that rental properties are healthy, so a significant increase in government contribution to and obligations on landlords to make rental homes healthy. We're focused on providing more stability in the tenure of tenancies for those who are renting, because I think that's important. Someone renting should still be able to call their house their home, and more stability in their tenancies is also important. Expanding the number of houses that are based on an income-related rent, so public housing places. We're focused on really expanding that for our low-income households, our low-income families. More work to be done there. One of the best things we can do in the housing area is just make sure that we're building more houses. We've got record numbers of building consents being issued, so we've got to keep that momentum going. It's going to take some time.
There's not a lot of time, and it's an MMP coalition environment. Have things just got trickier?
How does it work, like, say, with Te Pāti Māori? So there's been talk that the Māori caucus have been muzzled, yet it seems that Te Pāti Māori wants to work with them. How does that all work?
Well, I guess in an election campaign, you're going to see parties taking different positions and criticising each other from time to time. That's the nature of the democratic process. Voters deserve a hotly contested election, and they deserve to know they've got a choice. I think Labor's track record is a really good one. I think that, particularly on issues affecting Māori, we've worked closely with Māori communities to deliver on the hopes and aspirations of Māori. We've got a lot of work underway. There's still a lot more work to be done. But I think we've got a good message there, and so I'll be proudly campaigning alongside our Māori ministers and MPs for two ticks, for both votes to go to Labour in the coming election.
So So they're not muzzled and shackled.
Absolutely not. And,
They're not holding you're not holding Labor Party to hostage.
Oh, no, absolutely not. But if you know, look, and I think if they were, they'd certainly be saying something about it. They're a group of very talented, competent, confident, strong-willed people. That's what governments should be made up of.
So as we head into the election, of course, the treaty becomes an easy sort of lightning rod. Why do you think that Māori need to participate and have more meaningful influence over decision-making?
Well, I think we should be proud of Te Treaty. You know, it was a bold and visionary exercise to try and share New Zealand amongst those who were living here in a way that was peaceful. Now, across the course of our history since then, that hasn't always been honoured, and we should recognise that, and we should continue to recognise the ongoing effects that that has day to day now for many of our Māori communities, and we do have a responsibility to do something about that.
And then, something close to the heart of so many whānau, Australia. Chris Hipkins finally secured a pathway to citizenship. Quite a breakthrough, you'd think.
Your announcement after you went to Australia that there was a pathway for citizenship, which, you know, a whole bunch of people here are going, yeah, that's so awesome, awesome. It all got twisted into next minute everyone's going to take off, there's going to be a huge exodus, and the opposition over there were like, oh, we're going to be inundated. I mean, were you surprised at how that all got turned around?
I think New Zealanders living in Australia deserve to have the rights of the rights that they have earned through the contribution that they're making to Australia. They're paying their tax in Australia, and being excluded from access to their public services, for example, actually places an imposition on New Zealand's public services. It means that we're not getting the benefit of their tax, but we are ending up footing the bill if they need to come home for medical treatment, for example. So I think what the Aussies have done is good for New Zealand and it's good for Australia.
He's been in the hot seat for about 5 months, leading the two Chris's in the polls, and there's 4 months to go before election day.
How confident are you as you head into election? A third term is quite a big thing, isn't it, for sitting government?
Oh, I'm really confident and optimistic about the future. I think the Labor Party has achieved a lot, but we've still got a lot more work to do. So my focus in the next couple of months is going to be to distill that down so that New Zealanders know what are we going to deliver in the next 3 years.
Coming up, Camilla, kids and sausage rolls, a bit of quick fire with the Prime Minister.
Okay, quick fire question. Beer or wine?
Probably, it depends actually. I do a bit of both. So it depends. On a nice hot summer's day, a good beer on the deck would be great. If I'm out for dinner, probably a glass of wine.
That is not a yes or no question.
It isn't.
Are you over sausage rolls?
I've put on about 5 kilos since I became Prime Minister, and I reckon about 4 kilos of that sausage rolls. So I'm rationing my sausage roll intake.
Were you comfortable with Queen Camilla getting the top award?
Yes, I was, and there's a long history behind that. So, yes, I was. We are still part of the British monarchy. They are still our head of state.
Have you read Matike Mai?
No.
Will you?
Well, I will now, yes.
Thank you. Will you speak to China about human rights when you head up there shortly?
Yes.
Collective profits for the banking sector were $7.18 billion for the year ending December. Is that obscene, yes or no?
It's very questionable.
Are your kids comfortable with your new role?
I think they'd like to see a bit more of me. I try very hard to keep them out of the public limelight because they're very young, and you know, if they choose in the future to put themselves in the public limelight, that will be their choice. But when they're very young, I work really hard to keep them out of it. I think they'd like to see a bit more of me.
You don't do yes or no answers, do you?
Not very good at it, no.
Chippy, where did that name come from?
It sort of started when I was at university, and I don't really know where it came from. It just kind of stuck.
Are you comfortable with it?
Yeah, I've got no problem with it. People call me lots of things. That's one of the nicer ones.
Thank you, Prime Minister.